Hi class, my name is Dara Clay, and today I'll be presenting on conducting ethical research. So I'll be discussing ethical principles, informed consent, the IRB, and knowing your audience. So I came up with an hypothetical research question. What is the percentage of marijuana use on Eastern Washington University's campus? Furthermore, I just added another piece. We want to know if marijuana was the first drug they tried and what illicit drugs they have used since. So, in essence, trying to figure out if marijuana is a gateway drug or not. So, ethical principles. There's three main ethical principles. The first is respect for person. This really boils down to respecting autonomy and choice. We want to make sure we're not coercing students into participating in our study. We want to make sure that we don't have any influence on any of the students in the study. The second is beneficence. Now, this is providing security and anonymity. Now, this is very important, especially with this study. It's a very sensitive subject and could lead others to know about student behavior or professors about student behaviors. And that's not something that we want to subject our participants to. So this is a very important thing. And it also involves weighing the risks of the study against benefits. The third is justice. Now, you would assume that in this situation, students are informed and we don't have a lot to worry about in the justice aspect, because usually this pertains to taking advantage of participants, perhaps the homeless or perhaps the mentally ill. Well, we still have some work to do. Making sure that students have informed consent and are well informed about what the study has and what it's going to do is very important. Informed consent. Now, I didn't want to make this slide too wordy, but of course it does have a couple bullet points because informed consent is very important. So we want our participants to know the purpose of the research, possible benefits and risks, available alternatives, their rights, including the freedom to discontinue participation. We also want to let them know their privacy and confidentiality will always be protected, and whether there's compensation, who the contact person is, and making sure that if they have questions or concerns, that they are able to voice those. I also gave a tip, because in this particular study, we would need to reach all students on Eastern's campus a certain way. Now, how are we going to provide informed consent to perhaps 14,000 students, right? Well, an easy way to do this is for an internet-based survey with an I agree or I do not agree button. This allows for students to still be informed and give their explicit consent without having to speak to each and every student. So the IRB. What is the IRB's job? Well, the IRB is the deciding factor. It is going to decide if your research is ethical and legally appropriate. Okay? It's going to be your pit stop to see if your research is reasonable and is going to be allowed to proceed. What do we have to do as researchers? Well, we are required to submit a thorough description of what we plan to do. Often this is called a research protocol. And for this situation, we would absolutely need to go through the IRB, especially if there's funding involved. Of course, this would be at a federal institution, and so we'd want the IRB's consent going forward. I gave a tip in the right-hand corner, and this is where you can find EW's IRB contact information. So, but hold on. Are students off limits? That's a really great question because, of course, there are different measures when you're studying different participants, such as children, the mentally ill, and students also have specific rights. Now, as researchers, we are not allowed to have student names. So, a great way is to give surveys via class email listservs. Now, this is through our .ew's emails, okay? Another way is distributed in class or posted in a public place. You want to make sure that if you distribute it in class, you're not distributing it in your own class, or if you're connecting this research with a faculty member, you want to make sure that you nor the faculty member have any influence on the students that you're giving it to. So these are really great tips on how to stay ethical while researching students. And of course, students must have access to report complaints. That is a really big one in giving them their autonomy. So here's the overview. I hope by the end of this presentation, you understand the 3 ethical principles and why they're very important. Informed consent and why it is very important. Contacting the IRB and the steps to do so. And of course, knowing your audience. Making sure that you are reaching those extra steps needed for different audiences. And these are my resources. Again, thanks for listening, and my name is Dara Clay.